Okay, guys, we got to talk about the situation with Google in San Francisco. I think they're kind of dumb, the situation. In fact, Google security contractor lays off hundreds of Bay Area workers. And it's not just Google, so don't be blaming them. You got a lot of guys at Lyft, Uber, Adobe. They're all laying off workers. If you guys don't know, unemployment is up. It used to be 3.3% just a few months ago. Now it's 3.9%. And a lot of it is in the high-paying tech jobs and finance jobs. And guess what? High interest rates, right? Economy softening. Q4 GDP really isn't that great. Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart all announced earnings, and guess what? A softening of markets. It seems like a lot of people are very cautious when buying things this Christmas and Thanksgiving, and a lot of people just simply don't want to buy anything at all. I think consumerism is down, unemployment is up, and nobody's going on vacations. And on top of that, you have massive layoffs in tech, which is already pretty bad for San Francisco. And San Francisco has a plaguing situation of crime, homelessness, and lastly, a lot of empty offices. Workers are just moving out of San Francisco. Companies are leaving and companies are moving their offices online. San Francisco is taking a big beating. In fact, they're going to be at a budget deficit. They're so down bad that they got to do a $200 million price cut for the budget. That's pretty bad overall. And now Google is already laying off a bunch of workers. Not exactly the best. And a lot of these places are in the Google facilities. And a lot of these employees will have to be let go. And many of like the other companies and smaller guys under Google are also slowly firing off a few people here and there, which is adding up to the thousands. And check this out. Google is also kind of done with the San Francisco Bay Area projects as well. Now, before the pandemic, the Silicon Valley area was one of the biggest hubs for tech. If you want to do tech, you want to do tech investment, you better get yourself to Silicon Valley ASAP on a flight. Because if you don't, you got a lot of other competition. Back in the old days, if you want to do a tech company, sure, you could start it in your garage or start it in your dorm room, but eventually you're going to have to go to Silicon Valley, meet some investors, meet some VCs, all the big technology events, the funding, the startups are all in San Francisco and the rest of the Bay Area. So this is why a lot of tech startups, the moment they have some capital, they move everyone to San Francisco. This is where top development happens, right? This is where all of the young companies become big. The unicorns, like Airbnb, started off as a mattress in San Francisco, eventually grew out of that and became like a multi-billion-dollar company. And Google really wants to make some pretty crazy developments, including a new downtown on the west side of San Jose, which San Jose needs a massive revamp right now because it's so empty. You got like 90 empty storefronts in a city that small. Google is ending this development. They're scrapping plans. It's a $15 billion project. They're investing $15 billion in the next decade to make multiple downtowns and campuses all Google related, including tens of thousands of apartments and homes for just everyday people as well. So Google has the power to do this, but now they announced that after looking at their financial sheets, a lot of the developers are continuing to exit California's real estate markets. And you also have Lend-Lease. They're like, well, guess there's nothing for us to do now. Lend-Lease is going back to Australia. So you have a combination of Google laying off workers and recently security contractors laying off hundreds of the Bay Area workers, not just in San Francisco. And then you combine that with Google's recent cancellation of one of the biggest projects in this decade. They're completely scrapping it. They're done. And I don't blame Google considering San Francisco is just incapable of doing anything at this point. And if you look at Tom Wong, this is a business owner, says that the city streets are back to their original form after it was cleaned up for the APEC event, which is the US-China Summit, including hundreds of high-tech CEOs and very wealthy individuals. This is crazy. This doesn't make sense. I mean, like the city just doesn't care at all. Okay, after like a high-end event, it just goes back to the way it was. They don't care anymore. I mean, I guess when all the rich people and all the high CEOs are there, they really do care. They clean the streets up. There's security everywhere. And San Francisco was actually a somewhat pleasant place to be in because it was actually pretty shiny. And once APEC was over, just right back. No one cared. Security's gone. And it's the same old San Francisco again. And just this move alone actually showed people that San Francisco will probably never change. The first major change they had, was now totally gone. A lot of people said that the APEC event and the cleanup will stay forever because a lot of business owners did like that. But surprise, the moment the APEC summit was over, the streets went back to the original form, and Tom Wong even says there's poop everywhere again. So you kind of get the idea, and I think Google kind of sees it as well. And it's not just Google. A lot of other companies aren't saying a word, but they kind of see the deterioration of San Francisco, and they just don't want to stay here anymore. And many of these companies are moving their office workers online, and many of these tech workers just want to work remote. San Francisco is expensive. People used to commute 1 to 2 hours to go to this city to work. Now they can work in other parts of the Bay Area. Other parts are cheaper, safer, and cleaner, or just work strictly out of California in general. And check this out. A lot of other stores are closing. It's not just Google laying off employees. It's not just Salesforce closing down offices, but you even have small mom and pop stores. A 19-year-old pizza parlor is closing. These stores are iconic. They're decades old, right? Even like the McDonald's in downtown closed after opening for 30 years. They said for the first time in 30 years, foot traffic in downtown is so low, they can't make any money. And these like multi-decade old restaurants, like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, some even 70-year cafes are closing because of the intensive crime and the situation happening in, San Francisco. I think people are kind of done. A lot of big companies are just bailing out. And on top of that, you already have 3 chain businesses near Oakland, just right across from San Francisco, closing down. And remember, there's chain businesses in San Francisco that's closing down as well. Targets, Lucky supermarkets and grocery chains. Starbucks is closing down. Walgreens, CVS, Staples, Office Depot. You get the idea. Like a lot of these stores are just simply closing down. They just can't make any more money. And look at this. This is super empty, right? This is Union Square in San Francisco, one of the most populated places, reduced to just a few people and a couple pigeons. Saks Fifth, they're closing down. You're also seeing a lot of other retailers. 17 major retailers in Union Square have shut down, including one of the highest and most expensive hotels in San Francisco, Park Hotels and Resorts. They defaulted on over $700 million of loans because there's barely any tourists, barely any investors coming to the city for meetings. In fact, many of the major tech events are now being moved to places like Las Vegas, which traditionally isn't even a tech hub. So Google sees this, and Google's like, you know what? With this high interest rate market and perhaps a mild recession, we should lay off workers. And many of the tech companies and banking companies are all laying off workers by the tens of thousands right now. Okay, you guys don't know what's going on. Consumer spending is soft. There could be a mild recession. And on top of that, we're still going to be having high rates all the way till maybe fall of next year, which will probably bankrupt hundreds of companies, big companies, not just small, and many of those workers will probably get laid off as well. And as I'm speaking, unemployment is still ticking up.